The famous saying goes, all truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. The perfect example of this is the MCU. As more and more fans recoiled at Spider-Man No Way Home aside, how incredibly bad and subpar each and every project was, both on the big screen and on Disney+. The entertainment media complex and Associated Chills went out of their way to declare each new release the best since previous release, and accused everyone who dared say otherwise of being a racist, misogynist, review-bombing troll. Right up until reality could no longer be ignored, and all staunch defenders retroactively claimed that what they had previously defended so fiercely really wasn't all that and never was. Now, filmmaker Matthew Vaughn openly states that the MCU is in need of saving, but that Deadpool 3 will give it the jolt it needs. Well, I'm here to tell you why he's wrong. This comes to us from Deadline Hollywood, which reads, while promoting his latest movie Argylle, the filmmaker made an appearance on Bro Bible's post-credit podcast, where he talked about the movie starring Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. The few snippets that I know about Deadpool vs. Wolverine, or Wolverine vs. Deadpool, I'm sure that argument between Ryan and Hugh is happening as we speak, are unbelievable, he said. Vaughn continued, that's going to be the jolt. The Marvel Universe is about to have a jolt of them, and it's going to be brought back to life. I think Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are about to save the whole Marvel Universe. The implication of that, of course, is that in Vaughn's estimation, the patient that is the MCU has in this moment flatlined, and is headed towards the proverbial light, and only the jolt that Deadpool 3 uniquely can provide will be able to bring it back. Now, before we move on with why that won't happen, let me just say that I would love if Matthew Vaughn was right about this. I'm a big fan of Marvel Comics. The traditional Marvel Comics, that is, not the mostly activist crap that has gone under the Marvel moniker this past decade. And as such, the MCU at its best is not just among my favorite film franchises of all time. It is by now a worldwide cultural institution that should not just be maintained, but restored to what it once was. But after now half a decade's worth of DEI-induced destruction being wrought on it, it's going to take more than Deadpool 3 to do that. Let's for the moment ignore the potential problems with Deadpool 3 itself, such as having seen both seasons of Loki very well could be required homework. Let's ignore all that and assume for the moment that Deadpool 3 is a smash hit and more importantly a crowd pleaser on par with the first Deadpool and Spider-Man No Way Home. Let's assume the movie can do that. Then it still has 2 things to overcome in order to jolt the MCU back to life and bring back audiences in the numbers that used to attend MCU movies back in the before days. The first is that you have to overcome half a decade's worth of movies and TV series, where storytelling and compelling characters have taken a backseat to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Which, for practical purposes, means that there is a cap on how many white and male characters are allowed to appear on screen, and on how many white and male screenwriters are allowed to appear in the writer's room behind the scenes. We covered this in our previous video, which you can find by clicking the link on screen or in the description, but the brief summary is that the most talented writers and experienced storytellers, who just so happen to be white and male, aren't welcomed in the writer's room any longer because they are white and male, instead giving way to a new generation of younger, inexperienced, and more diverse writers that only wants to lecture the audience on social justice. That's what has happened to the MCU in recent years, something audiences were reminded of in last year's The Marvels. They just got another refresher of that with Echo on Disney+, and in just a couple of weeks, Sony's Madame Webb will be released. And while few are going to actually go out and see that, many saw the trailers, and they alone will remind everyone of the put a chick in it and make her gay doctrine. It doesn't matter that Madame Webb is technically not part of the MCU, it's still another female-centric Marvel outing in an era where there's nothing but female-centric Marvel outings. As such, it's going to flop and cheapen the Marvel brand by mere association alone, and add to the baggage that Deadpool 3 will have to contend with. So that's the first thing that Deadpool 3 has to contend with: brand damage that audiences will have fresh in their minds. But still assuming that Deadpool 3 knocks it out of the park and fires on every cylinder, it can still give the MCU a jolt in the guise of more audiences being willing to come back to the MCU for the next outing after Deadpool 3. And that's where it falls apart. That's why Deadpool 3 won't help, because after Deadpool 3, we're going straight back to the same DEI trite that destroyed the MCU to begin with. You see, Deadpool 3 will be followed by the release of the Agatha All Along and Ironheart series on Disney+, both of which first and foremost are about lecturing the audience on issues relating to social justice and LGBTQIAP+ issues. And on the big screen, Deadpool 3 will be followed by a reshot Falcon turned Black Captain America and the frankly wrong team of Thunderbolts. Granted, all of these issues stem from when Marvel went all in on DEI messaging, but what about now? Surely they must have learned to put story and characters first, after the epochal flop that was The Marvels. Doesn't look like it, no. If there is one group that genuinely is underrepresented in Hollywood, it is Latinos, and Hollywood sometimes can't even agree between themselves on whether or not Latinos qualify as white or not. But in the case of Marvel's upcoming Fantastic Four reboot, Kevin Feige decided that Latinos are not white, because he cast Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic specifically because he wasn't white. And as was widely reported at that time, Feige had no intention of allowing the Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, to be played by 4 white people. Yeah, I know that many of you now will argue that Ben Grimm is explicitly Jewish in the comics, but Hollywood doesn't count that as representation. The issue here, then, is Kevin Feige's refusal to cast comic book accurate, as it demonstrates that he still intends to cap the number of white characters that can appear on screen, which in turn means he remains committed to the DEI aspect of the larger ESG agenda. As we have covered extensively before, the before days when Marvel was a universally beloved franchise pumping out hit after hit was when Kevin Feige answered to Ike Perlmutter and the quality demands of the Marvel Creative Committee. Kevin Feige hogged the credit in public, but he was never a visionary or the architect behind the MCU's success. During the Marvel glory days, he was in reality but one small cog in a larger machine, and a replaceable one at that. It was only when Ike Perlmutter and the Marvel Creative Committee was removed that Kevin Feige was firmly placed in charge, and that's when he, Kevin Feige, installed the very policies, the malignant cancers, that a few years hence would cause the MCU to flatline. That's why Deadpool can't jolt the MCU back to life. The proverbial cancer that caused the patient to flatline in the first place, brought on by Bob Iger and Kevin Feige, is still there. Just like Spider-Man No Way Home before it, Deadpool 3 is just another fluke and not an indication of any new direction. The MCU can't be brought back until Bob Iger, Kevin Feige and the DEI policies they have installed are removed. Only then will the cancer be gone, and only then can the character-focused storytelling that made the MCU as successful as it was in the first place have a chance to resume. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments.